We're all a little depraved and debaucherous. Here is the king of podcasts.
My next guest on the program is an acknowledged authority on evolutionary psychology and persuasion. He's the best-selling author of 4 books, including Unleash Your Primal Brain, Demystifying How We Think and Why We Act. My guest also holds dual degrees in cognitive science and computer engineering. And there's much more to his background, given the fact that I have gotten the chance to produce podcasting for him. And I've known him, my guest, for roughly 20 years now. I've been in the space of podcasting in general. So he's here to join me about his latest book here on our program called Primal Dating, the Unflinching Evolutionary Psychology Guide to Modern Relationships. He's ripping the Band-Aid off the modern dating world, providing an unflinching guide for men based on evolutionary psychology. Modern dating narratives, encouraging men to focus on self-improvement and become proven winners in the dating market. Listen, I've read at least 100 books in my lifetime. In my Audible library, I just looked, I have 23 books on dating, psychology, and so many other areas. That's not counting other areas that are related to it. This by far might be arguably the most influential book on dating I have read to date. So I'm here with Tim Ash, author of Primal Dating. Tim, thanks for being on.
Absolutely, my friend. Wow, those are very kind words, especially as I know you're a student of all of this and have devoted a lot of time to it. So thank you for your words about primal dating.
So I've gotten through almost all the book, but from what I've gotten so far, I got up to the tactics for men. So the areas about what men should be doing to apply what the book talks about. That's where I've gotten to that point. But the thing is, it's such a raw truth that's said there. And the thing is, it's not happy talk. You are not going to feel like, wow, I've been doing so, like you might realize there are certain things you have progressed along in your dating journey. If you're like me, who has been a chronic dater all my life, I have not had a serious relationship. For those that listen to the Praise and Debauchers for all these years, you know a lot of my story because I have shared it. But the thing is, if I had this book years ago, maybe it could be a game changer. Honestly, it is. And for the audience I have right now, a younger audience, you need to go pick up this book. It's not even, it should be required reading. Prerequisite before you get to the dating world, you should find this book. Now, Tim, the book emphasizes the importance of understanding the fundamental biological differences between men and women. The psychology that men a lot of times don't really understand. And there were certain books in the psychology I've read that I've been able to try to incorporate on how you're supposed to communicate with women and the sort of communication that women might give to a man that we might not understand right away because we're based on logic. Women might be more based on passion or through their heart. But you argue the inherent behaviors that men and women have are supersede modern cultural narratives, that our biology still, at the end of the day, identifies who we are, and we're still going to respond to that. So elaborate for me on how a man's pursuit of a woman and a woman's selective nature are deeply rooted in our evolutionary past, and all the cultural stuff that comes in doesn't matter.
Yeah, well, let's think about it this way. We have a certain wiring as an animal species, And to say that men and women are different, I mean, that's about as obvious as gravity. But I mean, there are other species where the males and females are basically the same. They're the same size. They act the same. We're not one of those. For example, men are 25% larger than women on average. We have 15 to 20 times the testosterone, which leads to aggression and taking a pretty active part in the world. So obviously we're there for different functional purposes. Now, this isn't about a which is better thing because we evolve for complementary needs. But the main point that my brilliant co-author Limor Gottlieb and I wanted to make in the book is that you can't just take your cultural crap and put it on top of 200,000-300,000 years of human evolution. You have to look at what we evolved for, and that'll give you some real strong clues on why we behave the way we do and why there are these massive asymmetries. So to kind of give you the cartoon version, which we're all familiar with, we're on the plains of East Africa, and we're in a tribe of a few dozen people, and who are you going to send hunting? Well, is it going to be the 25% smaller women that have less aggression? No, if you want to survive, you send the men off to hunt, and the women are taking care of big-headed, useless babies. We are the most helpless species on the planet when we're born. And our big evolutionary advantage is being able to learn the cultural package of the tribe around us. And that's kind of a life hack that helped us evolve as a species. So babies take a long time to develop. Adult brains aren't even matured till the age of 25 fully. So women had to take care of those helpless blobs and turn them into actual human beings. So men and women have very, very different roles. And so women, basically, their approach is to find their one best choice, the one guy that can show up every day and continue to provision and provide and support. And men were bred to compete for that. In other words, to be the best option, to be the best risk taker, the best provider, and so on. Again, that's a kind of cartoonish version, but that's essentially what made us the way we are. And that has a lot of implications, which I'm happy to go into.
The bottom line is that the book is telling you to strip away all this gobbledygook, all this preconceived notions and narratives that we see on social media, that we've been hearing of delusional, whether it's on the men or women's side, of what men or women are supposed to be, where their place are in dating, to relationships, to marriage, and so on.
Exactly. So let me give you some examples, if I may. So all of the following things are cultural concepts. Men are all rapers. Women are less logical than men. Marriage is what God intended for us, the structure of how to be in relationships. So, I have a soulmate out there who's just waiting to find. Okay, all of those are cultural concepts. So if you want to really strip it down to our evolutionary psychology and biology, you have to look at, is this thing around across all human societies, across all time? That's the kind of foundational stuff we're talking about. And you got to kick off all of this modern bullshit, whether it's feminism or red pill crap or pickup artist techniques or, all of that stuff is learned culture. Some of it's rooted in a warped way in evolutionary psychology, but you really have to dump all of your preconceptions if you're going to get clear and do things reality based.
Now, one of the things that's very clear is that in the book, you state that women want proven winners, not projects. Now, I got to make this point across clear too. So in the delusional messaging we hear, that a lot of women want that 0.1% of men that are out there that are available. They are, 6 foot tall, 6-figure income or more, and, well endowed 6 inches or more, whatever the whole thing is.
And a 6-pack, the 4 6s.
So the thing is, it comes down to the fact that, okay, you can say all that, but there's still some truth to the messaging of the fact that a woman wants someone that they can feel secure and safe, they're going to be provided for, and they're going to be able to go and have kids with, and they're going to be able to have a life with, and they're never going to lose that person. They're going to be able to rely on that person and stay true to that person. That's what it comes down to. And for men, they want someone that is, at the end of the day, they would want someone that has not been overly promiscuous, possibly a virgin. And some of the traditional traits we see out there would still be good today, but one of the things that is a problem that we do need to address is that what kind of emotional baggage do some of these people come from on both sides? Where if people are, mentally stable and are, they've been able to go through a proper background, mother and father, they've seen the role model of what a good marriage or relationship or what, just what men and women are supposed to be and how they're supposed to act, what masculine and feminine means. But what about if you think you're trying to get yourself in with somebody, but you don't know what kind of background they come from, what kind of trauma they might have suffered? If they came from a single family home, dysfunctional, or came through some various psychological or sexual trauma, what do you say about those people entering into the space and trying to filter out to make sure that, you're not falling into a project of the woman being a project or you being a project?
Yeah, well, you mentioned something very important, that a lot of people are traumatized at various degrees of trauma out there. I mean, that's basically being human. Nobody's got some perfect upbringing. But I want to focus more on tendencies, because the individual stuff, I can give you some tactics later, but I want to talk about kind of those asymmetries. So here's a couple of asymmetries. Men and women select and attract differently. Okay, that's absolutely true. And then men and women also have different short and long-term mating strategies. You mentioned want the woman to have a high body count. So we have, like, as men, this, what we call it, Madonna whore complex, right? We want that nasty woman in bed, but then she's the perfect mother, and, you know, she's just walks on water and we worship her. Well, that has evolutionary roots. So I want to talk about, you know, like, why that's the case, because in the short term, we want to take advantage of sexual opportunity. So we want the quote unquote, you know, loose women.
Right.
In the long term, we want somebody we're going to invest in and who's going to be faithful to us and invest in our children and be a good mother. You can't just, like, spread your seed everywhere and run away. Those babies aren't going to survive because they don't have the support of the fathers. I mean, some people take that strategy and try to plant as much seed as they can. But the point is that men and women do things for different reasons, and short-term and long-term strategies are very different. So for women, it's the same. Around ovulation, they want those, you know, square-jawed, genetically superior guys, right? But then they go and snuggle up to the guy who's going to be a good provider and take care of their kids. So it's kind of like this portfolio diversification for women. So we have these tensions, not just as men and women, but also in short-term and long-term strategies for how we select and provide. And women select, men are simple. We basically, like, is she hot? We can tell that by visual inspection, right. Waist to hip ratio. That's basically fertility cues, and will she produce healthy babies, right? And is she a pain in the ass? And that comes in very different flavors, but it's basically a tug of war between those two things. Whereas women, they actually select on two completely separate axes. One is the good genes, and the other is provisioning, the ability for you to continually provision, whether that's emotional support, financial support, showing up, helping, whatever that looks like. And so, you know, we call it the diamond of women's selection. So at the bottom, you have, like, low provisioning and low attractiveness. Basically, you're invisible to women. If you go over to high attractiveness side, you're the bad boy. So, like, we hope you'll graduate into a useful real man, but you have good genes and you have confidence and swagger, and that's where all the pickup artists and red pill guys focus. Like, how do I bang as many women as I can by being quote unquote attractive, right? Now, but if that doesn't materialize into long-term relationships, then those bad boys are usually cut loose. Usually women experiment with them earlier in life. On the other side, you have the friend zone, which is like, I can provision you and I'll do everything for you, but you don't find me attractive. And once a man gets into the friend zone, there's no getting out. So one of the things we suggest, by the way, in the book for men is stay away from the friend zone. Every interaction you have, as soon as you end up there, it's like a Jenga tower. Once it collapses, you're in there forever. And then I would put it into that other aspect, is the fact that if you have those friend zones, and I know this from experience, that if you have someone from the friend zone that tries to come back and reapproach you, after they've had children or after a couple of years and they've gotten older, then, you know, the thing is, if you're not going to be able to go and be able to attract and be able to go ahead and secure a relationship with that person that you're interested in, that puts you in the friend zone, get out. Yeah. No, that's what I'm saying. So a real quick, obvious advice is, if you're ever friend zoned, you're done. You will never be a sexual option for that woman. So if you didn't make your attractiveness clear and your desire for an intimate relationship clear as part of the entry point, it's never going to flip. That's only in movies that happens. And then again, at the top of women's selection diamond is high attractiveness, high provisioning. Those are the alphas, or rather the Prince Charmings, the husband material. But every woman is chasing those guys, so they have a lot of optionality. So basically, if I had to kind of sum up modern dating, what you have right now is most men are invisible to women for a variety of reasons. Happy to talk about them. Highly educated women are really frustrated, and the Chads are going to town.
Well, now let's go and talk about the part of a clear distinction that Primal Dating, the book, talks about when it comes to short-term sexual pursuits and long-term partners for marriage and family. I know the normal sense would be, okay, I remember thinking about the fact of a marriage and family would be something 20s into your 30s. That's like the first attempt. You want to find somebody you want to be in a commitment, in a relationship with, but then things change. You realize, well, if that's not going to be the case, and, you know, as a guys, you know, it's not, that's the other part of the understanding, is that, you know, the biological differences, you know, guys can go ahead and, you know, spread their seed along, and it's like, it doesn't make a difference. They're kind of built for the fact that they can go and have sexual conquest with whatever woman they want. For women, there's consequences to it for whoever they sleep with because of being pregnant. And yes, that's a massive risk. So basically, women are risk averse. If you look at it, just about every psychological dimension, men and women, quote unquote, are the same on average. But if you look at the spread of that, the bell curve, women tend to
tightly cluster, whereas men have these really flat, wide bell curves. In other words, there are more risk takers and cowards among men. There are more geniuses and freaking idiots among men. Every dimension, remember, women bred us to be more risk taking, and they are looking for safety and their best bet. That's basically the asymmetry you're talking about. Because if you have a baby with the wrong guy, or if he runs off and doesn't help support you, biologically, evolutionarily speaking, that was death to you and your child.
But there's now been a lot of societal factors that have also come into play that have made the dating aspect to relationships very difficult. For guys, then there's the risk averse. If you decide to get into a relationship and you have children with a woman and a divorce comes into play, the way that the estate is set now is 50% goes to the woman. And who knows what kind of child support or any kind of other payments you're going to have to go pay back. I mean, I just read about what the basketball player Anthony Edwards, what is it, $500,000 child support and some other things for the mother of his child. And like and of course, because he's $1 million, multi-million-dollar athlete, the guy's now screwed for life because he asked for child support. She asked for child support actually it was alimony for life. So he's done. It's like, there's another risk on that side, but there's the part where, it makes everything impossible to create marriage and family. And then for women,
well, so you're absolutely right in that marriage formation is down, divorce is up, relationships are down, and even sex is down. Here's a shocking stat: 10 years ago, 10% of men under 30 hadn't had sex in a year. So 10% were not having any sex in the past year. In this past decade, it has now climbed to 30%. It's tripled in a decade. Something is really, pardon me, fucked if people aren't even fucking. Right. I mean, so there's a massive breakdown in relationship formation, and there are several reasons for that. If you want to get into it, I'll be happy to list them off. So the first is that, first of all, most stuff is happening through online dating. That's where more than half of relationships now start. So that's where you're playing. In that online dating, you have twice as many men and women on dating sites. That's such a massive numbers imbalance, right? And then here's a couple of compounding things. When men always make the approach, there's really three decisions in any long-term relationship. Men have to approach the woman has to decide to have sex with them, and the man has to decide whether to provision or continue to invest resources, time, money, and attention into that relationship. So 3 choices. Well, so men are always going to make the approach. That's almost universal. And so what happens when the approach is really easy? When you have thousands of women you can swipe right on, right? Where there's no rejection, where you think you're choosing them in a vacuum and you have a shot with them. Well, basically men's approach goes up to 11, or actually 111 on a scale of 1 to 10. And as a result, women have these full inboxes, and every unattractive, undesirable woman still has hundreds of people in her inbox. So she thinks she's all that in a bag of chips. Yep. When it's not really true. And then to make things even worse, women's, one of their most fundamental things that we talk about, one of their fundamental needs is a safety.
Yep.
Feeling of safety. And so they naturally have stranger danger. Any man who's not familiar to them is going to get downgraded. Well, guess what? When you approach women online, you're automatically a stranger. So women are rating you on a 10-point scale, a couple of points lower just because they don't know you. And then you add to that the fact that women are doing great financially. 60% of bachelor's degrees are women. Women are out earning men in large metro areas until they decide to step off the rat race and have some kids, right? So that's great for women. But the problem is that, again, women are choosing men that are going to upgrade their life. They're looking for men that are doing even better. And that's becoming very, very difficult for men to compete with. Just in a couple of generations, women are doing so much better that effectively men, for all of these reasons, have now become invisible.
Yeah. Societal norms, and you brought up, first of all, the dating apps, and I'll tell you, this is the antithesis of what this program's all about. So women that find themselves in toxic relationships, where, if they're in a broken relationship or they're in a broken family or other trauma that came into their lives, and they find someone else, a man who has his own trauma, that's able to go ahead and be narcissistic, controlling, manipulative, and toxic relationships really put somebody through a lot of damage. Professional women that feel like, they want to go and just abandon then the whole idea of dating relationships in general and just find their career when it'll be too late if they want to go and think about kids relationship. Then there's also the areas about the visual aspect I look at, Tim, where, okay, tattoos are such a normal cultural norm now in the last 20 years more than ever. And for me, I'm just not into it. It's just not, I mean, especially if it's just so, like if you get sleeves across the board, I think that's, it's a big change. And it's a lot to go and adapt to when you're getting older. Then there's also technology. When I think about right now, okay, dating apps, and you put a lot of work into talking about what to do on communicating in dating apps and trying to go and create, a connection, which I don't believe dating apps could do anymore. So I would want to know about how much to try to rely on dating apps versus in real life. Because in real life, you have to use their phones regularly, so you're not going to get their attention really quickly. And if they're wearing AirPods, okay, if you
they're tuned out. It's a zombie apocalypse. Everybody's just a zombie at this point. Yeah. So all right, let me attack some of the stuff that you just talked about. So first of all, you're right. There are some damaged people out there, and the one thing that people aren't telling you about dating apps is healthy people with secure attachment styles and resources and having done some personal development work aren't on them. And the best people aren't on them because the best guys are having women throw themselves at them. They don't need anymore. And the best women, well, here's your choice. Someone's offering to fly you to Dubai for the weekend, or you can go meet some schmuck in a bar and have a beer with them to see if you like them. I mean, the opportunity cost is just too high for the really high value women. So the best people aren't on there at all. Okay. Just to be clear about that, healthy and desirable people are not on dating sites. Okay. And that's why, maybe 20 years ago, Tinder was hot and all these dating sites. Now, everyone's having such an awful time with them that matchmaking is actually coming to the fore and having people introduced to you in real life. And we definitely suggest going offline and doing real world stuff. So one of the things we talk about is you're really in a bunch of different sexual marketplaces. One is work, one is your gym, one is online dating sites. Maybe if you go to faith community like a church or whatever, those are all different actually sexual marketplaces. And you have to figure out which ones work for you. And it may be some of the dating sites, it might be none of the dating sites. There's, a lot of people look down and say passport bros, men who will go to other countries where women don't have the same attitudes about careers and their self-importance and so on, and finding relationships there. That's just a smart move because you're just picking a different sexual marketplace to play in, one that you're more likely to be successful in.
Now, one of the things that's very important that I think most other dating books do not touch upon enough. Listen, we might hear the alpha male mindset about, getting yourself together, being rich, getting yourself in shape, and being the best version of you. That's great. But then there's also the part where the dating market, you say, is conditional and must be continually proven. So there's a part about where you need to go you got to love yourself, make yourself the best version of yourself. But then there's also the fact of where women, we don't, it's the part of they want to continue to test you and prove that you know your value and that you prove your value to them. And you have to continue to do that. And it's a constant thing. And I know for me, that is difficult to go and do. And it's to keep that up on a regular basis. It can be a bit disheartening, and I can think guys could try to get set back by it. But tell me about that importance of trying to continue to understand you got to make yourself the best version of yourself. Also realize you don't need to be chasing. You need to realize how you can be looked at and how women should be coming to you because the best version of you is attractive.
Yes. Okay. So let's talk about some of the red pill stuff. I happen to be somebody recommended, I guess it's The Rational Male by Rollo Tomassi, and it's got a bazillion likes, Amazon reviews. It's a horrible book. He's got some evolutionary psychology in there, but it's mixed with a bunch of shit. So it's like digging through shit to find a gold nugget or two. I'm sorry, I don't like this.
I agree.
Yeah. Anyway, so the premise is that you should all be alphas. Well, you can't. The whole point is alpha is somebody who's dominant, and they have to be subordinate. So look, all of a sudden everyone's an alpha and they're going to be banging chicks right and left. And that seems to be the goal. There's no, the guy's actually married and has 2 kids, as I understand it. And he's not really practicing that but he's advocating it. I think that's really short-sighted, is to think of women as just sexual gratification and variety. That's not what this book is about. And we're just unpacking what we evolved for. Like I said, we have complementary needs. It's not like one side of the gender war is going to win. If one side wins, there's no more relationships. We all lose. The human race goes away. It's as simple as that. It's that fundamental. Anyway, so but to back to that earlier thing that you were saying, one of the important things for men to understand, or for everyone to understand, is that there's a crossing of curves. We have a whole chapter about this in the book. In other words, you can't just talk about men and women. You have to talk about life stage. So here's the deal. Women get their sexual marketplace value instantly. That's handed to them. Your highest desirability, whatever that means, and is at 18 to 20. And it goes down the rest of their lives for women. Whereas for men, it starts low, because think about it. Like, okay, you're figuring out how to put on your zit cream and stuff like that, or not look awkward in, high school photos. I mean, you're useless. You're useless to young women because they're getting propositioned by much higher resource, better established men. And you're useless to other men because you don't know shit. And so for the first 20 years of your existence as an adult, you have to grind in two directions. Now, this part is largely correct. You have to learn how to attract women and enter into relationships. That's practice. Nothing more, nothing less. So if you're stuck in your phone, you're not getting any practice. Okay. The second thing you have to do is create a lifestyle that's going to be attractive to women, which means that men work for their power. So men's sexual marketplace value peaks at 50. There's a wide peak from 40 to 60. So the way to think about it is that men should be just working for their power for decades and not jump at the first person to offer them sex and marry them. Whereas women should actually try to lock in as a strategy the highest value guy possible as early as possible.
Yeah.
Before their sexual marketplace value declines. The crossover point's at 30. After 30, men have a sustained, on average, and growing advantage. By the time you get to 40, to middle age, men have a permanent advantage for the rest of their lives.
Yeah. I'll tell you what, and you could quote me on this, the book is a man's wake-up call on how they need to go and approach dating relationships and how they need to approach their life in general, because by putting yourself in the best form of yourself, honestly, emotionally, spiritually, physically, you realize, the right people come to you, the right people and friends in life, and the women that you want to be with, they will find you and you will attract them. So I love the fact you bring this all across. And the thing is, dating and psychology books out there that I've read and others that are out there, they're therapeutic, positive inducing. If you do this, you will get this. No, why don't you just realize the fact that, you should be doing all this, that you should try to self-improve and love yourself. And for guys, this is where you need to go and realize whatever books you have out there, as you make mention of other books, that, it's happy talk.
Yeah, exactly. So here's the hard truth. And to sum it up from men's path in life. And by the way, we do, as men, everything we do is to have sexual optionality, to breed with the best people. That is such a strong life force. If you try to frustrate that, like in, say, Arab societies and stuff like that, like young men can't get access to sex, that leads to, polarization, violence. We're seeing it in our own society as well. So everything men do is to get sexual optionality with women. Let's just be super clear about that. That is the basic drive to improve your ass and get off the couch in the basement, stop playing Fortnite, and actually go do something meaningful in the world. So that's really important to understand. It's sublimated sex drive. And so here's the thing that men need to understand. You get competent at something, and then you get the confidence. Without being competent at something, without having some kind of agency in the world, without being useful to other men or women, and usually it kind of ends up being the same if you're, career-wise or something like that, there's no way to fake it. That's why I have a problem with all these pickup artist tricks. It's like, hey, just act like a swaggering asshole and women will fall all over themselves. Only the really damaged, fucked up ones will, okay? But if you want to actually have that genuine confidence, you have to build competence.
And that's the part, is that there have been so many books and so many different techniques about pickup artists or various approaches to go ahead and, kind of backhand compliments, all these different things that have been out there.
Yeah, there's no shortcuts.
Tricks. They're just tricks.
Yeah.
And maybe you might sleep with a couple of girls at the end of the day, but that doesn't give you fulfilling relationships, fulfilling, anything interactions.
That's right. And by the way, when we talk about relationships, there are actually 3 different chemical systems that bond men and women, and they don't always happen in order. And if you're in different stages of bonding, they could be pretty painful depending on, who you are in the relationship. But basically, you're there. The first one is lust. Okay, I want to screw you. The second one makes you want to lock into exclusivity. I found a really good one, and I'm going to put all of my focus and attention on them. And the third bonding system kicks in long-term attachment. And again, that's usually when you have kids. So men and women, these things, again, happen independently, and they don't have to happen in that order. And if men and women are in different stages of that, it's going to hurt psychologically a lot because there's a mismatch in the bonding systems. But it's all just freaking chemistry. Basically, if someone's standing in front of you under the right circumstances, all of a sudden you love them and you think they walk on water and they're the best thing that you've ever met. It's just a chemical reaction designed to have you be together long enough to have helpless babies for a few years. By the way, we're not monogamous as a species, and we bond for long enough to have viable offspring. So from an evolutionary standpoint, it's brutal. It's this sorting thing. You find someone roughly in your ballpark, and you bond with them, and you have kids with them, and to the point where they can, in turn, grow up to be somebody that can have kids of their own. That's it. Anything else that you want to put on top of that is not evolution, and evolution doesn't give a shit about anything else. Like your soulmate, your happiness in midlife. Good luck with all of that stuff.
And I also want to make the point that you have a great counterbalance in this book because your co-author, Dr. Limor Gottlieb, PhD in psychology, also evolutionary psychologist in her own right. And, the balance that was able to come off of this book, I want to make sure to make that point across. Tell me about how important Dr. Limor was to help giving you that balance that you needed for this.
Yeah, Limor is an amazing person and just an incredible scientist as well. And her work in evolutionary psychology actually focused on relationships, non-monogamy, intimate partner violence. So she is like the evolutionary psychology of relationships. So this is a gold mine to have found her through our mutual friend, Susan Bratton, whom of course. And so it was really fun writing the book. She kept me honest on the science. I was out in front of my skis a few times, but she reined me back in. So the book is really solid. But by the way, it's not like some popular science book. It's a self-help book. We wrote it with a lot of humor. It should be really an easy read. But the basic setup of the book is we talk about the evolutionary psychology, jealousy, non-monogamy, hypergamy, again, women selecting for the best, and so on, and the asymmetries between men and women. Then we talk about the modern dating hellscape and how modern society, which we weren't designed to live in, distorts it. And then we have a guide for women from the men's perspective and a guide for men from the women's perspective. And you should really read both. One will give you self-knowledge and one will help you understand the other gender. And because they're so radically different and asymmetric, you need to understand both perspectives.
And to make the point, once again, I'm not talking about from the men's side point, because I think the men, in my opinion, really need a lot of the help to really have the understanding of where that comes away from this book. But as you said, this book is for both genders. So,
and it's not just for dating. It's anyone that wants to have if you're married or you have a long-term relationship and you want to improve it, it's really good to understand this stuff. So for example, like one of the things you said was that women will always test you. Yeah. Well, again, that has evolutionary psychology roots, because before you didn't know about your 401k or your big house. You were running around and trying not to get eaten by lions. So she wanted a man who could provide every day. And so she's going to test you to see if she's got your full attention and your full provisioning, your time, your resources, emotional support. And if you start slipping on that, she's going to monkey branch over to the next tree and find somebody who's better. So women will never stop testing you. If you hope that you've paid your dues and done all the right things and now you're in a good relationship and that stops, no way, because their psychology is telling them they need to make sure that the provisioning from their man is not slipping.
And could you also, I always think about this too, and then this doesn't get stressed enough. When you look at couples that are out there that are very happy in relationships, very happy marriages, how many of those both partners are in shape? They're both very active. They're both very much, whereas if that guy was being tested to prove, he can still prove himself to his wife or to his partner on a regular basis, because it just doesn't matter. There's something to be said about where if you get married, you don't let yourself go after the honeymoon. The woman should not let herself go. You need to keep yourself in the best possible conditions you can.
And the man too should remain unknown in some sense and attractive to other women. You don't want to be her therapist and her best friend. Like women are always saying, be my best friend. Well, if the mystery is gone and they think that they've got you in the bag and you never have to, they never have to worry about you, they should be worrying about you, at least on a subconscious level. That will make them more attracted to you. if they think, wow, I bet he's attractive to other women as well. That should be kind of a unstated thought in their minds all the time. That doesn't mean be a dick or actually cheat, whatever your relationship goals are. But the point is, you should be mysterious and remain an option for other women. Because actually the way women select men is they use a shortcut. Just like men can visually inspect a woman, women look at men who are surrounded by other attractive women.
Right.
That is what is like their due diligence. It's like this shortcut that says, okay, someone spent time with them and decided he was worth having. Or like if you have a wedding ring, you're notoriously more attractive to women because somebody said that was their best option, right? So women are using that as a way to evaluate potential partners. So always remain attractive to other women. Doesn't mean you have to act on it, but that should be your mindset.
One thing I want to mention, Tim, and we're going to wrap things up and tell people how to get the book. But it's the one part you had talking about where guys will talk about that the wife or their girlfriend is their better half, or that you're looking for someone that completes you. That is bullshit.
Yep.
That felt like a slap to the face because you said it exactly right. And it was like, that really got my attention too. I was like, man, you got to just be the best version of yourself. And this is the part where this is a lot of work I got to continue to do on myself when I read this book. I'm saying, shit, I got a lot of work to do, man. So much work to do. And it's like, what have I been wasting my time on? I'm like, damn it, man. I wish this book was out sooner, but I'll tell you, we're going to stop right here because people need to go pick up this book. I highly endorse it. You have to pick up this book. It's not even a question. I implore all men out there, go pick up this book. It's over, again, primaldating.com is the main website. And of course, all places where you find books. Find it on paperback. You can find it on
there's paperback and ebook. Some people have been asking about the audiobook version, but we're not planning that for at least another year. And by the way, you're going to want to take notes all over this book. So I suggest actually buying the paperback, and you can do that in Kindle, take notes as well. But get something where you can take notes because this is your workbook for relationships.
No, and I guarantee you're going to have to read it again and again because you're not going to get it all in the first shot. You're going to have to go back one more time and read it again to make sure you get everything that's being said. Because this is a guide to life. Absolutely is. This is not smoke and mirrors. I mean it. When I read this book, there's maybe only one other book I ever read on dating that really changed the way I look at things. And that's it. This book right here, you have to go get. I don't plug anything on this program like that, but I'm telling you, you got to go find this book. The book, once again, Tim Ash, Dr. Limor Gottlieb. It is Primal Dating, the Unflinching Evolutionary Psychology Guide to Modern Relationships. Go get the book now. Go get it. You have to. It's going to change your life. Tim Ash, once again, author of Primal Dating. Thanks for being on my program, and I really appreciate it. I'm glad we got the chance to go talk about this. And man, I can't believe that, after all this time, we would get to this point of talking about a book like this, and you would get to go and expand on the career you had to do something like this and tap into the psychology work you've done in the past and bring a great book like this to the masses. Thank you for that.
Yeah, my pleasure. It was, our hope with Dr. Gottlieb is that this will open some eyes and, like I said, do relationships reality-based so you'll have more peace, more insights, and better success, hopefully, in what you're looking for.
So go do it. Thank you again, Tim. I appreciate you being on the program, as always.
It was my pleasure, brother.